Speaking English confidently is something that many learners struggle with. It is not just about knowing the words or understanding the grammar. The real challenge is overcoming the fear of speaking. Many learners hesitate because they are afraid of making mistakes, afraid of being judged, or afraid of not finding the right words. This fear can make speaking feel stressful and frustrating, but the truth is, confidence in speaking English does not come from being perfect. It comes from practice, from making mistakes, and from learning through real communication. I want to start with a story. A few years ago, I met a man named Ahmed. Ahmed had been studying English for many years, but he was terrified of speaking. Every time he tried to say something in English, he would freeze. He would worry about using the wrong grammar, choosing the wrong words, or mispronouncing something. So instead of practicing, he stayed silent. He avoided conversations even when he had the chance to practice with native speakers. One day, Ahmed got a job interview for a company that required English communication. He knew he had to speak English, but his fear was overwhelming. He prepared for days, memorizing answers to common interview questions. But when the interview started, his mind went blank. He struggled to find the right words, and the more he hesitated, the more nervous he became. After the interview, he felt like a failure. He told me, "I knew the answers in my head, but I just couldn't say them out loud." I told Ahmed something that changed his perspective. I said, "The problem is not your English. The problem is your fear. You are waiting for the moment when you feel ready, but that moment will never come unless you start speaking now." Ahmed decided to take a different approach. Instead of avoiding mistakes, he started making them on purpose. He challenged himself to speak to at least one person in English every day, no matter how nervous he felt. He talked to strangers at coffee shops. He asked for directions even when he already knew the way. And he even started recording himself speaking every morning. At first it was difficult. He made a lot of mistakes. Sometimes people did not understand him, and sometimes he felt embarrassed. But something amazing happened. The more mistakes he made, the more confident he became. He realized that most people did not care about his mistakes. They just cared about understanding what he was trying to say. Over time, he started speaking more naturally. And when he had his next job interview, he spoke with confidence. He got the job. This is the power of overcoming fear. If you want to speak English confidently, you have to stop waiting for perfection. You have to start speaking even when you feel afraid. Another common reason people fear speaking English is the fear of judgment. You might worry that native speakers or fluent speakers will laugh at your mistakes. But let me tell you another story. I once had a friend who traveled to France. He was learning French, and he wanted to practice speaking. So one day, he walked into a bakery and tried to order a croissant. But instead of saying, "Un croissant, s'il vous plaît," which means "one croissant, please," he accidentally said, "Un croissant, s'il vous plaît, avec un poisson," which means "one croissant, please, with a fish." The lady behind the counter looked surprised for a second. Then she burst out laughing. My friend felt embarrassed at first, but then he started laughing too. The lady corrected him, and he left the bakery with both a croissant and a funny memory. If you want to build confidence in speaking English, you need to take action. Here are some powerful techniques that will help you feel more comfortable speaking without fear. One of the best ways to improve your confidence is by using a technique called shadowing. Shadowing is when you listen to a native speaker and repeat what they say immediately, without stopping. You are not just repeating the words, you are copying their rhythm, their pronunciation, and their intonation. This helps train your mouth and brain to produce English more naturally. Let's try a quick exercise. I want you to repeat after me. I am learning English every day, and I am not afraid to make mistakes. Say it out loud. Even if you do not get it perfect, just say it. The more you practice speaking out loud, the more natural it will feel. Another great way to practice is by using speaking apps. There are many apps like Tandem and Hello Talk, where you can find native speakers to chat with. If speaking directly feels too scary, start with text messages. Then move on to voice messages, and when you feel ready, try a short conversation. The key is to take small steps. Another powerful technique is talking to yourself. This may sound strange, but it is a very effective way to practice. Imagine you are narrating your day in English. For example, when you wake up, say, "I am getting out of bed. I am brushing my teeth. I am making coffee." This helps you think in English and form sentences more easily. One of the biggest mistakes English learners make is focusing too much on grammar while speaking. Have you ever started a sentence and then stopped halfway because you were unsure if the grammar was correct? This happens all the time. But remember, native speakers do not speak with perfect grammar all the time. In conversations, people often use simple words and phrases. Your goal is to communicate, not to be perfect. If you make a grammar mistake, do not stop speaking. Just keep going. Let me share another story. There was a man named Carlos who was learning English. He was so afraid of speaking that he would only write messages and never talk. One day, he met an American tourist in his city, and the tourist asked for directions. Carlos knew exactly how to explain it, but he hesitated. He was afraid he would say something wrong. So instead of speaking, he just pointed in. The next time he had the chance to speak English, he decided to just go for it. He did not worry about mistakes. He just spoke. And to his surprise, the person understood him perfectly. Carlos realized that confidence does not come from knowing every word. It comes from using the words you already know. Now, I have a challenge for you. Think of a time when you were afraid to speak English. Maybe you hesitated in a conversation, or maybe you avoided speaking because you were nervous. I want you to share that experience in the comments. What happened? How did you feel? And what will you do differently next time? And remember, confidence is not something you were born with. It is something you build. The more you practice, the more comfortable you will feel. The more mistakes you make, the more you will learn. Do not let fear stop you from speaking. Take every opportunity to use English. Talk to yourself. Practice shadowing. Join speaking apps. And most importantly, do not be afraid of making mistakes.